Okay, I think we're live. I'm always like, there's always this moment of hesitation. Uh, but hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly movie club. For anybody out there that's watching in or watching later and doesn't know what this is one of the monthly discussions that we have at the Dragonfly Arts Collective. And even though it's just us on the screen, you're always more than welcome to comment on these videos, either live, where we'll actually see them and be able to respond to them, or you can join in on the discussion live. Or if you respond after the fact, I still get notifications on that. So I would still love to talk to you about movies or music, which is one of our other monthly clubs, or books, which is a quarterly club that we also have. Um, and if you're not in our Facebook group, but you want to join us there, you can. In one of these quarters is actually the link. I'm never sure which one. I think that's actually it for the housekeeping side of things. So I'll get right into the introduction of the movie that we watched. For the month of April, we watched Parasite, which is a 2019 South Korean black comedy thriller, which is what Wikipedia says, and is just so many genres are like so many words now. Um, it's been critically acclaimed and received numerous awards. If you haven't heard about it before this, that's actually very, very surprising. When it came out, it was a huge thing. I think it's the first foreign language movie to win Best Picture. But the movie tells the story of two families, the Parks, who are super rich, and the Kims, who are very, very poor, and the stark differences between them. And the Kims infiltrate the wealthy Park family's lives by posing as qualified workers, but things take a dark turn when they discover a hidden secret within the Park family home. Uh, this is a movie that was directed by Bong Joon-ho, and for those of you unacquainted with him, he is both the director and screenwriter. I actually had to look it up, but he has uh, written every single movie that he's directed. He's only directed movies that he has written, and he's actually written more movies beyond that. So he's more of a screenwriter than he is a director. Um, but some of his other popular works that have made it over to foreign audiences outside of South Korea are The Host, Snowpiercer, Okja, which I think is on Netflix. I think that's a Netflix original. There will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, watch it and then come back and talk to us. Like I said, I always get the comments, especially for the Facebook group, less so on YouTube, but I occasionally look at them. So, um, absolutely, if you have feelings on it, let me know. But for tonight, I'm joined by my friends Beckett and Derek. So I think we're going to do a little bit of a brief introduction because I think all three of us have worked in movies in some way, shape, or form. So just as like a better knowledge for how we watch movies, which is all very different depending on how you do it. I'm Rebecca. I have done a lot of BTS for movies, either post-production or like getting graphics ready for marketing and things like that. But my partner is an assistant cameraman, which means that whenever I watch a movie with him, I am always hyper aware of when anything is slightly out of focus.
Which is an AC's job.
Yes, that is what assistant cameraman does. They sit there and they make sure everything is in focus. And all of those times where it's just like focus pulling from like something far away to close, he's always very excited.
Those are cool moments, and people don't realize that it's two separate people who do that effect.
Yes.
Hey, Norma. This is my cat, Norma. She loves watching other cats in movies and media. She was obsessed during the cat episode of Sandman.
So she's a cat reviewer in movies.
Yes.
That's her.
So I'm Beckett. I have a long background in multiple aspects of film. I worked behind the scenes mostly on like BTS and extra features production for major films and TV shows. I worked very closely with the editors. I do some of my own editing, as well as I was also an actor for quite a while. I didn't do anything that you would recognize, but it was still fun.
Yeah, and I'm Derek. Right now, I'm mostly an editor and animator, and I've done a little bit of everything. Though um, I still sometimes read screenplays and judge them for contests and things like that. And I've directed things, and so yeah, a little bit of everything. Mostly an editor now, though.
So just all across the board, you've done the post, the during, and the pre. I don't know why I said it in that order. I think I just like I'm post, so I always post production is just where I go first. This is a pretty informal discussion out there. As you can probably see, I'm actually eating dinner as I'm doing this. But I do want to start with one question, and I think it's a question that I'm going to start every one of these with. Well, no, two questions. I have two questions that I'm always going to ask. But before this was our club pick, had you watched this movie? And if you did watch it, did you rewatch it before?
Yeah, this is my third time seeing the movie. I first saw it in the theater, and I remember the movie theater was packed, like much more than you might expect for a South Korean movie. And the audience loved it. They laughed along with it. And I actually have a short story about the second time that I watched it. It was um, in early 2020. Um, and I'll try to be brief, but it does relate to the movie both thematically and literally. But basically, early 2020 was a very bad time for me. I was like living alone in Burbank, and my rent kept going up. So um, at the end of January, I was almost homeless, basically. So as a last ditch effort to stay off the streets, I moved into this house that was run by Russian slumlords, and there were 5 people living in my bedroom, and I think around the house there were 30 people. So I'm out of that situation now, but it took like a year plus another year and a half. But anyway, the way it relates to this movie is that when I moved there, I felt very awkward around my roommates. Like we all slept on bunk beds, but they were younger than me. Some of them 10 years younger than me. And so I just felt very awkward and old because I had lived alone for so long. And now I'm in this place where there are just 30 people all over the place and only 2 bathrooms and things like that. Um, so I didn't feel like, um, I just didn't feel like one of them basically. But after about a week or so, one of my roommates who was 19 years old, he said that he wanted to rewatch Parasite because he had seen it in the theater and he wanted to show one of my other roommates it, but we didn't have a TV in the room, so I said that they could use my computer to watch it. So I downloaded the movie and we all watched it together, and it was um, a great experience. Like we were just sitting on our bunk beds, and they brought snacks for everyone, and just watching Parasite just made me feel like um, these people, like I just felt like together with them for the for the first time, and it like made the rest of my time there okay because I felt close with them. But so yeah, that's the long answer for the second time I watched it. But yes, I watched it a third time before this meeting. So yeah, this is my third time watching it.
This was my second time watching it. I also saw it in theaters, but not on its first run. I saw it, I actually had to look it up on my phone because I have a list of all the AMC movies I've seen because I have their like pass. Because I go see a lot of movies. And it looks like I actually saw this in January of 2020. Um, so which would have meant that it was in theaters and then it left theaters and then when it was announced, like it was like shortlisted for like all the awards, all of a sudden it was like everywhere wanted to show it again. So it was like kind of that second run.
Mm. Yeah, I hadn't seen it before, so this is my first time watching it.
Yeah. Beckett and I actually watched it together. And my room was very, very, very dark.
Yeah.
So it really built that suspense up.
Yeah, it's a great movie to rewatch because there are tons of little details that are like clues to what's going on downstairs. And I noticed them like the second time I watched. Like the big one is that Mr. Park, the rich owner of the house, says that the housekeeper eats enough food for two people or whatever. So it's a clue that she's taking food downstairs. And it's also fun to watch whenever the light blinks. And like the second time you watch it, you kind of know the reason for it. But the third time, I actually noticed a new detail that I didn't before, which is that Mr. Kim and the downstairs guy who drinks milk, I can't remember his name, but the two of them kind of have this hidden connection that isn't it's not elaborated upon, but basically they both have little lines of dialogue that they both tried to start Taiwanese cake shops in the past, and then both of them, like both of the shops, just crashed economically, and so they have that little connection. And when the downstairs guy says this, there's like a reaction shot from Mr. Kim, but Mr. Kim never says it out loud that they like have this connection. But yeah, it's little details like that that you kind of are able to see when you watch it multiple times.
Yeah, when you know how it ends, you can go back and see like all the things that pointed to it. But it's done so subtly that like you don't really notice it in the first place. I like watching the lights as he comes up the stairs. um, yeah, amazing movie. I like a lot of his stuff. I actually haven't seen Okja or any of the things that kind of just stayed in South Korea, but it really makes me want to. He deals a lot in social commentary. Like he's not even hiding it at all. They are all very, very obviously social commentary and about a lot of different things. Um, and even if you're not into that sort of thing, it's still enjoyable to watch. So, um, I'm a huge fan of architecture. I watch like a lot of YouTube on architecture, and architecture is actually like a huge thing in this. That house, like, I think part of it exists in a countryside, and the rest of it was like CG'd in because they wanted to make it look a very specific way.
Yeah, yeah.
And
There's oh yeah. I was just gonna say yeah. There's much more CG in the movie than you would expect. Like even rewatching it, I couldn't tell what was CG, but some people have said that it's like 50% of the shots have like CG or compositing in them because a
uh,
lot of the set was blue screen.
yeah, a lot of the set was like it was like a built set for where they're standing, but everything behind it is
Wow.
just very, yeah.
You wouldn't even guess. Like, I had no idea. And you wouldn't think that this kind of movie would have such a heavy amount of CG effects.
Yeah, it's really interesting if you go and I actually remember watching it like 2 years ago. I watched the behind the scenes, but I haven't watched it recently, so I probably should go back. I probably should have done that before I got on this call. But like their basement is just a set, so everything outside the window is technically, but I think it's that you're not really interacting with things that are on the blue screen. It's like they made the sets themselves, but things outside like windows or the top part of the house that no one's actually interacting with are CG. But he made a lot of effort for like the way that stairs work and how people like use stairs. So like you I think once you see like the house shot down from like the rich house, you always see it from like the bottom of the hill like looking up sort of thing. Um it tries to reinforce because I mean, I know we've seen it. I just feel like I should state things very, very clearly for anybody that's watching. Um, the rich family lives up on a hill in like a very secluded house that actually has a yard and has a lot of space. And the poor family lives in a basement apartment that is like at the very bottom of the hill. They had to take a lot of steps to get down there. Um, and even for that, they had to take all those steps down to get to the poorer part of town, and then they're below that
Mm-hmm.
in a basement apartment that is so deep down that they have to like their toilet has the most interesting setup. And I looked it up, and apparently that is a thing that happens in South Korea
Why?
because you have to make the plumbing work. And it's so close to the sewage lines that they have to build it up
Oh,
so that it actually can drain back down into the sewage lines.
crazy.
Yeah. At first, I
Yeah.
thought it was a double decker. I thought there was like a toilet up top and a toilet on the bottom, but it's not. It's like there's the toilet up top, and then I think just like the wash area beneath that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just watched a YouTube video with the director and the actor who plays.
Oh no, Derek, you're frozen. Oh no, did we lose him?
I thought he was just pausing for effect.
I know.
When he comes back, we'll have to rejoin that story.
Yeah,
I'm
and now I'm
gonna.
curious.
I want to know. Um, the the person who plays Mr. Kim. I'm gonna remove him from this for a split second until he's back. Um, the guy who plays Mr. Kim is actually I think in most of uh sorry, I just blanked out
There he
entirely.
is. He's back.
Am I back?
He's in most of
Now
Bong
you're back.
Joon-ho's movies, so it's interesting to see.
Oh.
Yeah, he's been in all of them, I think.
Wow.
Oh, really? Oh, are you talking about Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Yeah, he's excellent, and he's incredibly versatile as an actor.
I thought he looked familiar, but I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, it can't be because I don't think he was in like the only other prominent South Korean media that I've seen, which is Squid Game. And I was like, he's not in that. Like, why do I know this face? So that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of them were in Okja.
Mhm.
A lot of them share not the younger ones. I don't think any of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean kids as in like also the adult children in it. But like Mr. and Mrs. Park and Mr. and Mrs. Kim, I think have all been in his previous works.
I was just gonna say about the basement and about the YouTube video that I watched. It was with the actor who plays Kevin, the Mr. Kim's son. But they were talking about how it's considered a semi-basement. So, like in the movie, you can see that they have a window that's like eye level, and they're able to see the ground. So Bong Joon-ho and the actor were talking about how this is like giving them a little bit of hope that they can get out, even though, as Rebecca said, they have to go down tons of stairs to get there. So they're very far down economically and literally. But they talked about how like the window sort of gives them a little bit of hope. At least they can see people's feet, I guess.
Yeah, because a true basement would be completely underground. And that's where the ghost guy lives.
The ghost guy.
I don't remember his name. The housekeeper's husband.
I don't remember anybody's names. It's one of the
me neither. Yeah.
problems with one that we're reading them, and I can't quite pull the names out of the sentences. So it's kind of just Park family, Kim family, but I guess it's the Choi family.
The Choi family?
I think is
the Choi. Okay. The
maybe
Mr. and Mrs. Choi.
I might be wrong on that. I'm like trying to go through. I'm like, what family are you?
Yeah, I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts on the film's allegories, because you know, if for anybody who doesn't know, I'm very anti-capitalist. And so a film like this you know, has a lot to say for someone like me. So I'm curious what you guys think.
Beckett's like, no, I just want to get into the political talk. I think it does a fantastic job on the commentary that it's trying to pull of just, I mean, the movie's called Parasite. So who's really the parasite? Because as we're watching it, like, I don't quite know what the Mr. Park does.
Yeah. I don't think
Mrs. Park's a stay-at-home mom, and he regularly talks about how she's incapable of doing any of the housekeeping. So, like, she spends most of her day passing off her children to other people while simultaneously worrying about everything and worrying about the food while not actually making any of it.
Mhm.
And the one time that we see Mr. Park working, he like, I don't even remember what he said, but it was like something that was just like so mundane. He like works in what looks like a VR headset. Like he makes like video game I don't know. It feels like it's gameware. He said he's a tech giant, but it also seems like he doesn't know anything.
Yeah. It seemed gosh, I can't remember. Do you remember the name of the company? Because it's very funny. I'm trying to find it. The company that he works for.
I don't know. So it's this whole thing of which side is really a parasite for society, the rich people who can't actually, who rely heavily on everybody else, or the people who can't make money.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the first time that we meet Mrs. Park, she's literally passed out doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So
living the life.
The dream. American or otherwise.
Yeah, I think in one sense, like the themes are
another brick.
Another brick.
Another brick. So it's like it's supposed to indicate that they develop like gaming systems or something that are going to go obsolete in a few years.
Okay. Yeah, I think in a sense, like the allegory about economics is presented in a very simple way, but not in a bad way. And the movie is not preachy or anything, but the economic themes are pretty obvious. Like as long as you just take a little bit of thought and think about like where the Kim family is and where the Park family is, and how the Kim family gets flooded and their lives are almost destroyed by the rainfall, while the Park family considers it a minor inconvenience, and little things like that. It, I, yeah, so it is like, in a way, it's kind of obvious how the movie is about like economics and things like that. And Snowpiercer is kind of about similar things, except the instead of going upstairs, you're going to the right to because you're on a train. You're just moving toward the front of the train. That it's kind of a similar allegory, but it's just tilted on its side or whatever. But yeah. So this time watching it, I was struck by like the final act or coda of it, kind of after the violence of the birthday party and stuff. The first time I watched the movie in the theater, I didn't quite like how Kevin survived. It didn't seem realistic after getting smashed in the head with the rock twice, at least twice. I can't remember if there were more head smashes, but this time I liked it more because I just felt the sadness of it, of him dreaming of owning the house and just wanting his dad to come out of the basement. Um, it just ends on a very sad note, I think, and it's it. I don't know. The ending is not simplistic like or I don't mean simplistic as like an insult to the rest of the movie, but the ending is kind of not as simple as the rest of the movie about like upstairs and downstairs and that kind of thing. It's just very sad. But yeah,
It's
that's
about
kind of
hoping
yeah.
for a future that you can't like really have.
Hmm.
It's so impossibly out of the reach.
Hmm.
But also, and this is weird for like a like South Korean, but I guess it's not weird for a South Korean. Uh, but it talks a lot about colonialism. I mean, little kid is obsessed with like
Indians.
Indians
Yeah.
and things along those lines, and like the whole smell thing. So there's a smell of the lower class. That's the distinction between them that they feel like is going to get all over them at their home and is going to like, yeah, seep into their things.
Yeah, like taint them in some way.
Yeah, I think that's when the movie becomes more serious. Like when Mr. Kim gets insulted when he hears Mr. Park talking about the smell, and it's sort of a serious moment where they're under the Kim family is under the table and they're just listening to the rich people talk about the stink or whatever, and it seems to change something in Mr. Kim and just makes him depressed for the rest of the movie. It seems like, but yeah, that smell is very interesting because Mr. Park always talks about how he doesn't like people crossing the line and how like the hired help shouldn't cross the line, like whatever he means by that. But like smells are always crossing lines. Like it's the way that smells are. So
Yeah, you can't contain them.
But
yeah.
also, while he was having that discussion, he was under the table and he didn't smell him then. So,
Yeah.
but
So is it really a smell?
that is one of my favorite like visual scenes from any movie I've ever watched ever is like just the parents like looking out and you just see like Mr. Kim's feet in the corner and just no one's addressing it and it's just wide enough for you to see them. Um, it's one of my favorite just visual scenes in anything, and it's so simple and it's so strange.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense though because they had a bright light shining in their face. Like it would be easy not to see that if you're staring into a bright light.
Also, if you're not looking for it.
That's also the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the mom was convinced that her son saw a ghost because she didn't want to think of any other alternative that it could be.
I mean, to be fair, in their defense, I also would not consider man living in secret
That's
bunker under
fair.
basement.
Yes.
So,
But like, you wouldn't even think to go, "Hey, mom, I saw a ghost down there. Okay, let me go investigate."
yeah, either go investigate, or if I mean, I don't have kids, but I feel like if I had one and they saw a ghost, you'd be more interested in comforting the kid than going all in with, "Oh, there's a ghost." She doesn't. It seems like that's the first time she really tries to have him get over the ghost problem.
Yeah, it seems like she just, with most things in her life, just brushed it under the rug and hoped it would go away.
Well, she wouldn't even brush it under the rug. She'd have someone else do it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I already know the answer to the second question I have. I feel like maybe I should move it to the front, but it just feels like such an end question. So Ryan and I have a very specific rating system that we have used for movies because it's very I don't know how to like rate movies. They all kind of feel like apples and oranges a little bit. And so we made this entire system of how we were going to rate movies. And it's like a scale of 1 to 5. And I'm not going to ask you guys to do that. I'm just going to ask if you liked it and what your rating for the movie would be. But I do want to just talk about my rating system. On a scale of 1 to 5, how good was the acting? How good was the writing? How good was like the technical aspect? So like the filmmaking, cinematography, that sort of thing. We kind of clumped that together, despite the fact that that's actually where we think the most. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how entertained are you? Because ultimately, that's the most important part. And this movie actually gets pretty close to being like a perfect movie for my scoring system.
Yeah, I'm very easy to please. I would give it all the highest marks all around.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed, as far as the acting goes, Mrs. Park. I thought her delivery in the like just dead staredness in which she would interact with everybody was spot on and extremely well done, and not to a point where it looks cheesy. Like, she really pulled it off really well.
I think they all did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, absolutely. But she stood out to me. Her and the daughter, both of them, I think, were the standouts of the cast. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I would give this movie pretty close to perfect as well. Maybe even perfect. With the writing, it feels a bit hard to judge because it is Korean and I'm reading subtitles, and there's probably some stuff that's lost in translation. But I think the movie is incredibly universal. Like I said, in the movie theater, people loved it. They were laughing at all the right places and like cheering and stuff. So I think the writing on that scale would be perfect. I think the technical level would also be perfect. The only thing, there was only one shot, because like I said before, I even rewatching it, I can't tell what's composited and what's not. You can watch a visual effects breakdown on YouTube. There's like, I think the company that made the visual effects released a video as like marketing to show how good they were, but it's like maybe 3 minutes long, and there's no narration or anything. It's just showing shots of the blue screen. So you can watch that if you're interested in seeing which shots are blue screen. But there was, during this rewatch, the only shot that I didn't quite like was the news reporter near the end, where it's a very wide lens, and it looks like the camera is just moving around the house, or not the house, but like just panning around. And it just didn't look like a news report. Like usually, well, I mean, I don't watch South Korean news, so I don't know if they shoot things differently, but um, I don't think news reports are shot with a very wide fish angle lens. But that's such a minor quibble that it doesn't matter. Like the um, the editor was nominated for an Oscar. Of course, the director won an Oscar. The producers won Best Picture. I think it won one other Oscar. Oh yeah, Best Original Screenplay. It won that, and it was nominated for Best Production Design. But yeah, so yeah, on a technical level, I would also rate it perfectly. This is my favorite movie of his. I've seen all of them except his first one, which was Barking Dogs Never Bite, but I definitely want to see that one. I think it was made in like the late '90s, so he's been around for a long time, and he's um, had an incredible track record. Yeah.
You'll be pleased to know that he has a movie coming out next year called Mickey 17. I don't know anything about it other than it's been picked up by Warner Brothers, which, yeah, no, he hit it big. I think he has been a big name for such a long time, but I think after this we'll see a lot more of him, and probably on like things that are more international. But I think that South Korean media, first of all, I always think of like the VFX because a lot of VFX houses go through Korea. So do animation studios. A lot of animation studios go through Korea. They have a huge thing for that side of it. So it doesn't surprise me that the actual production house would be like, look at what we've done. They love showing that off. And one of the things that I really like about just watching Korean things in general is they love VFX and they love showing you that they know how to do it. And there's a very specific style that they do in their stuff. I'm not a huge fan of, because I know that like there's a lot of people out there that really love Korean media. I wouldn't consider myself in that realm at all, but I do appreciate just how much effort they put into their VFX and their editing and all of that. Um, but I do think that they cast a wider net in terms of audiences. A lot of South Korean things aren't made for people that are just in South Korea, which is probably one of the reasons why he's had such a big career on more of an international stage, with actually being able to win Best Picture with a foreign film.
Yeah, I can't speak necessarily to the quality of the dialogue in the film because I don't speak Korean. But as far as the writing goes, I do think that it was extremely well done in its aspect of storytelling and kind of what the subtle hints are along the way, as well as what's hidden from the viewer until key moment when you need to find it out. And the in terms of the allegory and the commentary on, like you were saying, Rebecca, who is the parasite in the situation. And if you know anything about like Ayn Randian thought, like, the whole context behind that is extremely controversial as well. And even choosing a title like Parasite, gives a certain connotation. So
Yeah, it's true. And I actually remember Republicans kind of tried to twist the title, and they released like this ad or something that was a photo of like Elizabeth Warren and some other Democrats with their eyes blocked out standing like the poster from Parasite, and it just said Parasite on it. So they were trying to flip it to be the more common usage instead of like the movie, which is in a way it's ambiguous who the parasite is, or if the parasite is capitalism or what it's referring to, but yeah, I just remember like that whatever the Republicans were doing, they tried to flip it and make
Okay,
it.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Beckett knows exactly where I'm going with this because I pointed it out to her.
Mhm.
One of the reasons why I even brought up the whole like why it's called Parasite and that thing is because one of my absolute favorite kind of reviews for it was somebody made a list of the best conservative movies of all time, and I think it's the funniest list I've ever seen because it's very much incorrect about like what it kind of just feels like it's a bunch of people who liked movies and then used that to justify their way of thinking. Parasite is on that list, and I thought that was ridiculous. But when I read it, it was just like, it's truly a love letter to the nuclear family. It says the true parasite are liberals. And I couldn't stop laughing at it.
Yeah, conservatives always very notorious for their good media literacy.
Mhm.
I will say that I am a little bit jealous of the Kim family, of their relationship with one another is just so it's a good relationship with your family.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And it's so different from like the Parks who don't even communicate with each other at all.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like Mr. Kim tries to get Mr. Park to say how many times that he loves his wife, and he will not say it. Yeah, healthy dynamic you got there,
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. And like in the beginning, Mr. Kim is very proud of his daughter for forging college documents and things like that. And yeah, they do have a great dynamic. And there was one other thing I was going to say about that. But yeah, I can't remember. But um, oh yeah, it's kind of like in the beginning, the tone is more comedic, and the Kim family is sort of presented as like lovable dirtbags in a way. They're like scamming their way to survive and stuff, and um, they do like have a great dynamic throughout the whole movie. But like the opening scene where trying to they're talking to the pizza box lady and they're like surrounding her and like kind of threatening her even though they're being charming and they're trying to be nice. I don't know. Yeah, they do work together very well, and the Park family is always in separate rooms. Well, maybe not the husband and wife. I mean, the husband is always at work or whatever, but like the brother and sister in the Park family are always in separate rooms, and the housekeeper does all the child care stuff. So yeah, it is a very interesting contrast when you look at it that way.
Yeah, I thought it was also very interesting in that, like they don't shy away from pointing out the ways in which rich people will use you if they feel like you are useful to them. Because like you said, like they went through all the trouble of forging a diploma for the son to get the first job there, and she was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, how can I use you? Are you useful to me? That's all I care about.
Well, she builds herself on recommendations. I don't think qualifications aren't something that interest her.
Yeah, and
She
I
because
find that
she's a socialite, she doesn't have qualifications, so
that's
why
true.
would she look at other people's?
Yeah, see, I examined that a little bit on a deeper level as far as like she is very much of the space where she can afford to use people,
Mhm.
versus having to check their qualifications because, what's a little bit of money to her? Like when the daughter comes and is like, oh, but my rate is going to be so much more. And she's like, okay, great. I don't care. Like it's just very much about the usefulness that they can get out of the Kim family.
I wish I had that level of confidence that the Kim daughter has of just
Yeah.
walking in and being like, "These are my rates, and because of this, it's going to be this much more, and you're
Mhm.
going to need me this many times." Okay, cool.
Yep. Me too.
Just straight to the point. Boy, I have imposter syndrome about the things that like I can do. I wouldn't be able to fake myself through something like that.
Well, it's not fake, you know, when you truly believe in yourself and your ability to, I guess, grift the people that you're conning. There's a reason why the term is confidence man or woman.
So in my scoring system, I have it at 4.6 because I add those all together and then divide it by 5, and then I have it built on my 5-point scale. The real thing is I took a point off for writing simply because that is the longest Morse code letter he could have possibly come up with.
Yeah.
Like that is my complaint.
Yeah, that part was a little unbelievable. Like, he couldn't have written a letter and then figured out a way to get it to him. He had to do it through Morse code and the light, just hoping that the kid would be watching one day.
The whole thing. He had to
The
watch the
whole
whole
thing,
thing.
yeah.
He does it every day.
Yeah. I did like that part, though, when Mrs. Kim was like, that sensor's on the fritz. Or not Kim, the other one. I keep getting them mixed up.
And the guy in the basement has just been trying to use Morse code the entire time. And I think at the end, they make a comment that this is something that I was confused about while I was watching it. So Kevin, the Kim's son, says at the start that he's not a scout, that he always just wanted to be a scout. And then they bring up that because the Park son is a scout, he knows Morse code and he'll be able to figure out the light system. But then, like, at the end, like, Mr. Kim's like, you'll be able to figure this out. You're a scout. And I'm like, I don't know where the lie is in that. I don't know who's lying. Anyways.
I don't think you're supposed to know who's lying.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I kind of missed the part in the beginning where Kevin says that he's not a scout. I apparently forgot about that. So yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It is a very long letter, and I was in Boy Scouts as well, and I don't know Morse code, so it is still kind of a crapshoot, even if someone is a Boy Scout. To if they know Morse code. But yeah, I think the the first time I watched the movie, like I kind of said, the whole ending section bothered me a bit more, but I liked it more this time because I think I just thought of it more symbolically, I guess, and I think like the underground guy doing the Morse code on the lights whenever Mr. Park enters the home also fits with the allegory of like rich people just not caring, even when the poor people are trying to service them. And like, because during the birthday party, he, the underground guy is trying to tell Mr. Park that he cares and that like he has been doing a service for him or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he says, but then Mr. Park has no idea who he is, and the smell hits him, and that's sort of what makes Mr. Kim snap. Like he sees the reaction of the smell, and it's sort of, I think it probably makes Mr. Kim feel a lot of kinship with the underground man, even though, well, I mean, the underground man just stabbed his daughter, and like, so
Yeah,
I don't know about
but
kinship.
still, yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and I think that that's accurate because, like, at least he recognizes that he's still human, even though he went crazy and, you know, stabbed his own daughter, and, you know, he was locked up in a basement for 4 years. Like, of course he went crazy. But I do think that he still can regard him as another person, whereas Mr. Park kind of turned up his nose and just didn't care that he had just been stabbed in the abdomen, and he just wanted his car keys. Like, what a careless piece of crap. But like, I thought it was really what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the moment when Mr. Kim is downstairs and the ghost guy is showing him what he's been doing with the lights and turning them on as Mr. Park goes up the stairs every day when he comes home from work, and saying a prayer to him, and things like that. And he's sort of judging him, and he's kind of looking down on him from there. But then I think as soon as he sees Mr. Park turn his nose up at him, it's kind of this moment of like, how dare you? He's a person too. And then the roles flip, and Mr. Kim becomes the guy living in the basement. So I thought that was a really kind of poignant turn.
Yeah, that is true. And I do think, like, when the Kim family first goes into the basement and meets those two people, I do think that the Kim family looks down on them.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I read a little bit about the Taiwanese cake shop that's mentioned in passing. Apparently, this was a trend in South Korea in like the 80s or 90s or something. In America, the equivalent would be like frozen yogurt, where there were just tons of frozen yogurt places popping up. Over there were just tons of Taiwanese cake shops popping up.
Whoops.
I think he.
Sorry, I think I accidentally hit my spacebar and
Okay.
didn't mean to. Sorry.
Okay,
Keep going.
I'm back. Okay. Yeah.
You disappeared like a Taiwanese cake shop.
But yeah, like when the Kim family first meets the underground guy, it seems like especially Mrs. Kim, the new housekeeper lady, she seems to look down on them for like living in the basement and taking food from the rich people, and like not, at least the underground guy doesn't really have a job. He just sits there and drinks milk, apparently, and like, I don't know, just gets food from the rich people.
I had questions about that one as well. It's never addressed again that she runs down there and gives him a bottle. I assume it's because he's so weak that like that's all she can give him.
I thought that's what it was. Yeah, because she hadn't been down there in like how many days? Like 4 days at that point.
Yeah, it's been like a week or so.
Something. So he hadn't eaten. Yeah. So I thought that was it. But also I thought it was the film kind of portraying him as childlike and needing to be taken care of.
There's also another thing that I just thought about now, which is they talked down about the other employees the entire time. So they talked down about the driver, and they also talked down about the housekeeper before they took those roles. Almost as if they were somehow better than them because they knew that they were conning them out of money, as opposed to the people who were just trying to work. As if like they were a part of the problem, when in reality, likely the driver and the housekeeper worked for the architect and just stayed on. But both of them are also just trying to make money in the exact same way. And like, especially as a driver or a housekeeper, like those were roles that they already had before then and were struggling to find work. So they just ousted out a couple of other people to take that job, and then said that they were doing that job better because they were better than those other people.
Yeah, that is true. Like the Kim family does leave a lot of collateral damage, and it makes me think of the phrase some people use about capitalism, that like people are like crabs in a bucket. Basically, when crabs are trying to climb out of a bucket, they tend to claw each other and pull each other down, and like basically just fight with each other. When if they knew any better, they could work together to climb out of the bucket, but that's just not what happens. And it's similar to how poor people have to like just scrounge and like get jobs any way they can, even if they
Yeah.
have to oust other people. And it's
And it's like about the competition between people who are of the same socioeconomic class. Like Mr. Park wouldn't have to compete with other people for where he's at. He's at the top of the ladder. There's no competition there. But everyone else at the bottom has to scrimp and scrape and claw at each other to get any little bit of anything.
See, look at that. Uncovering new things that we didn't notice the first time through discussion.
Yeah. But the Kims do leave a lot of damage in their wake. They're like a storm when they come in.
They do.
3 people died. So 4 people, because the daughter died too.
Yeah, 4 people died. We are coming up on an hour, so if there's any final thoughts or discussion points, I think the only other point that I had that was just like a little thing that happened during the movie that I noticed was just that the Park's daughter just straight up carried Kevin out of the basement on her own, and I want to give her props for that.
Adrenaline, man. It's that, mom superhero mode.
Yeah,
Ripping cars off of babies.
We never touched on the rain, did we?
Very briefly.
Yeah, very, very briefly. It's just another part of the chain of the social commentary in there of, there's a bunch of rain and the Parks are just kind of like, well, this wasn't even going to ruin our camping trip, but the child, like the kid, didn't want to deal with it. So we're just going to come home to our nice house and eat some ramdam.
Yeah, it's like that was funny, ramdam. That looked delicious. I want some.
It seems like it's just ramen noodles with beef in it. So
well, I think it was ramen and udon together.
Ramdam, that would make sense.
But it's an interesting allegory because it's like water accumulates. So it's, the more there is, it's going to pool somewhere. So if you're stuck at the bottom of the economic ladder, it's like every little thing. And if it's just, because rain is just drops of water, but the more there are, the more it can cause like a larger problem if you're down somewhere where that's going to, create problems for you like it did for the Kims.
Yeah. I mean, that's how a lot of things like that work. It's
well,
on one hand, you can also be like, that's kind of how debt works, but also it's just the entire thing of you can be going through the exact same thing as somebody else and have entirely different scenarios.
Exactly.
And be able to handle it differently.
Yeah. If you have the money to weather like a medical disaster, then it's not as much of a problem as someone who doesn't. So it's like those tiny little problems, and not that a medical disaster is a tiny problem, but it's like everything comes down at once. It rains, it pours.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was another aspect of it that I mean, I wouldn't say a huge, it's a major plot point of the film itself. And even though they shower and trade clothes with people, they still have that smell on them.
Yeah. And they literally lose everything for a time because their entire house and all their possessions are ruined.
But don't worry, the socks that were attached to the open fan came back. They recovered.
Oh, but the window was open because that would have changed anything if it had been closed. But I did want to touch real briefly on the cinematography because it was gorgeous. I liked the use of backlighting and lens flares, especially.
Like I said, one of my favorite scenes and just visual aesthetic things in all of film comes from that movie, and it's a very passing thing. but also the way that they use symmetry and also that same architecture that I was talking about before is very,
Mhm.
very prevalent in the cinematography.
Mhm.
And very, very well done. I actually meant to check to see if his cinematographers remained the same from everything. And I didn't.
Yeah, I particularly love the transition between when Kevin the son is dreaming about owning the house, and they're in the backyard, and then the camera pulls up, and then as it does so, you're going down into the basement, and the light flashes there. That was really great.
So a fun thing on Wikipedia, because I was pulling up to see the cinematographer, is there is actually a grid of all of the recurring cast members throughout all of Bong Joon-ho's stuff. So you can see like who was in a bunch of other stuff for him. That being said, it's mostly just Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim has been in a lot of his previous stuff.
Yeah, yeah, they're incredible together. Like, it's kind of like how Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese always work together. And that actor is incredibly versatile. Like in over the course of his collaborations with Bong Joon-ho, he's played a murder detective in The Host. I can't remember what he did exactly, but he was. I remember him being kind of goofy or like kind of a joke to the other characters.
I
And
see
then,
the picture of him in the cover of The Host, and it's just like the hair, you immediately know.
mhm, yeah, and like in Snowpiercer, he's kind of this drug addict guy who is just on the train, but he's a genius or something. I can't remember, but yeah, their collaborations are pretty incredible. And he also works a lot with the other most famous in America South Korean director Park Chan Wook. Not in Old Boy, but like in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and I think there are a few others. I haven't watched as much of Park Chan Wook's movies, but um, I think him and Bong Joon Ho also worked together. I mean, wasn't Park Chan Wook like a producer or something on Parasite? I don't know.
I do not know off the top of my head. I can look it up though.
Yeah, I think they have collaborated though, but it kind of reminds me how like there's that group of Mexican directors like Guillermo del Toro and what's his face? I don't know. Those three guys from Mexico who are friends with each other and like always like support each other. It seems like Park Chan Wook and Bong Joon Ho kind of have that same thing. Um, but yeah, we are getting like long on time, so.
um, I looked it up. It seems like Hong Kyung-pyo, who is the cinematographer on Parasite, also did Snowpiercer, and he did Mother, and then a couple of other things, but I don't really know any of those. So he did a few of them, but it seems like Bong Joon-ho has a Korean cinematographer and then a um, American cinematographer. I don't know. His name is he's actually Iranian, Darius Kanji, who did Okja and then is also going to be doing Mickey 17, which when I look it up is set to be released on March 29th, 2024, and stars Robert Pattinson, Stephen Yeun, Toni Collette, Mark Ruffalo. So that will be interesting. It's also based on a book, which is a little bit different, but Bong Joon-ho did write the screenplay for it. So we have that to look forward to.
And I can watch his other films in the meantime because I've only seen Okja. It's the only one.
I'll have to see if they're available elsewhere because it turns out that I lied to you guys on this one and it was not available on Hulu. It actually left Hulu like earlier this month. So
It happens.
I've been trying to get people on Canopy for a while now, so it all works out. I think if we don't have any further comments, I'm going to close us out for the evening. This is a fantastic movie. I don't know how I'm going to follow it up with picks, but I will announce that on next Monday, which I think is the 1st. Yes, Monday's the 1st. Sorry, I had to do the whole 30 days has September, April, June. Other than that, tomorrow night we have our movie club, or not movie club, this is movie club. We have listening club. So you can tune in and listen to us talk about The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And then on Sunday at 7 p.m., we are also going to have our book club, which is quarterly. We'll be talking about The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And both of those happen at 7 p.m. at night. And if you're in the Facebook group, there's a poll up for our next book for book club. I've already gotten a ton of votes on that. That was unexpected.
Everyone's excited.
Look, it's artist memoir or biography, so I guess people are more into that than contemporary literature. But those are our upcoming meetings.
Or people were just having a hard time picking, because I had a hard time picking between the 3 selections that you had for the first quarter too. So
maybe.
But
something that's a little bit more interest-based.
Yeah. But for those of you guys who are catching us either on YouTube or Facebook, if you're on YouTube, join us in the Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube. We do these every month. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about another movie in the future.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.